What's good, everyone? This is Monaro and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to cover the last 10 chapters of the book, chapters 63 to 72. It's going to be a long one, so sit back, relax, grab a snack, and I hope you enjoy. Catelyn is protected by 30 men under the command of Hallis Mullen, Winterfell's captain of the guard, as Robb's host waits to descend upon Sir Jaime Lannister in the Whispering Wood. Robb had wanted to leave her 50 guards, and Catelyn had only wanted 10, so neither of them left happy. Robb's army rode hard all the way from the Twins to catch Jaime by surprise. Along the way, they were joined by the Mallisters and some of the forces scattered after Edmure's defeat, but Sir Jaime Lannister still outnumbered them 3-1. However, in order to besiege Riverrun, the Lannisters were forced to separate their 12,000 foot and 2,000 or 3,000 horse into 3 camps separated by rivers, which leaves them vulnerable. In addition, Catelyn's uncle Sir Brynden led a screening force of 300 picked men to kill the few outriders that Jaime bothered to post, allowing their advance to remain secret. Before they face the siege, however, Robb and his men have concocted an elaborate trap. Unable to endure the boredom of a siege, Jaime has personally ridden out 3 times to chase raiders. To exploit this, Robb sent a few hundred men with Tully banners to lure Jaime and his men into an ambush in the narrow valley of the Whispering Wood. As she waits, Catelyn realizes that she is again waiting for a man who has promised to return from war, as she has done all her life. First she waited for her father when she was young, then it was for Brandon Stark, who never came back, then she waited for Ned Stark, who left a fortnight after he married her to fight in Robert's rebellion. At least Ned left her pregnant with Robb, whom she must wait for now. Robb showed no fear as the battle approached, but Catelyn still feared for the life of her son, remembering him as a babe at her breast. As Robb's squire, Oliver Frey, helped with his shield and helm, Catelyn saw a tall young knight appear where her son had stood. Robb left her to let his men see him before the battle, as his father had once recommended, with his direwolf Greywind shadowing him. While she waits, Catelyn hears snow strikes, which remind her of Winterfell. Suddenly, horns blow and arrows fly as the trap closes. Catelyn can initially see the moonlight on the lances, but soon she can only hear the sounds of the Battle of the Whispering Wood. Eventually, the sounds fade, and then Robb returns on a different horse with the blood of one of his bodyguards on his arm. They drag Sir Jaime before Catelyn, and he declares that he would offer up his sword, but he seems to have mislaid it. She asks him to return her husband and daughters, but he replies that he seems to have mislaid them as well. Theon Greyjoy calls for his head, but Robb considers the Kingslayer more valuable alive and, like his father, refuses to condone the murder of prisoners. Robb orders Jaime taken away with a strong guard, in part to protect him from Rickard Stark, who will want vengeance for his sons Torrhen and Eddard, along with Darren Hornwood. Catelyn then learns that when Jaime saw he was lost, he charged Robb's party, hoping to cut down Robb. Robb states that he would have been dead if not for Lord Karstark's sons and the others. Despite these losses, the battle is a resounding victory for Robb. They have taken close to 100 knights and a dozen Lord Bannermen captive. Catelyn points out that they have only won one battle, not the war. Although they took the leader, most of the Lannister host is still besieging Riverrun, and they still have to deal with Lord Tywin Lannister. Robb agrees that Catelyn is right and declares that they still have the siege of Riverrun to defeat. Khal Drogo is looking drawn and swaying in his saddle. He makes no reaction as the large blood flies circle and bite him. This concerns Daenerys, who is used to seeing her husband catch the hatred insects with his hands, quick as a snake, when they come too near. Drogo tore off the poultice Mirri Maz Duur had prepared for him 6 days ago, complaining that it itched. Instead, he used the soothing mud plaster of the herb women. He has also been drinking poppy wine, fermented mare's milk, and pepper beer heavily, but not eating much. At night, he thrashes violently, and even the kicking of their unborn child no longer seems to interest him. As Daenerys reaches for him, Drogo reels from the saddle and falls heavily to the ground. Daenerys rushes to him. Only half conscious and struggling in her arms, Drogo insists that he must ride, for the Khal who cannot ride is no Khal. Now Drogo has fallen from his horse, and it has been seen. When Drogo's blood riders come up, Daenerys commands that they will halt for the day and that the slaves be called to erect Drogo's tent. The blood riders are not happy with either command. The region is not a camping ground, and a woman cannot command. Daenerys insists that Drogo will punish them if they do not obey her, and commands Kotho to find Mirri Maz Duur. Once the tent is erected, Daenerys and her handmaidens bring the feverish Drogo inside and bathe him. Finally, Ser Jorah arrives with the word that Drogo's fall is known all over the camp. He asks Daenerys to send her maids away and breaks the plaster from Drogo's wound. The wound has festered and is rank with corruption. Ser Jorah declares that Drogo is beyond saving and that they must flee before he dies. Daenerys asks why she should run, since her son will be Khal after Drogo. Ser Jorah explains that the Dothraki follow only the strong. The Khalasar will not follow a baby. Instead, the Coles will fight for the leadership, and her baby will be killed as a challenge to their authority. Daenerys insists that her Khas and Drogo's blood riders will keep her child safe, but Jorah reminds her that the blood riders' last duty is only to return her to the Dosh Khaleen in Face Dothrak and then follow their Khal. Daenerys does not want to return to join the Dosh Khaleen, but she also refuses to leave Drogo. Mirri Maz Duur arrives with Kotho looking exhausted. Both Kotho and Hago, taking one look at Drogo, blames the god's wife and start beating her. When Daenerys demands that they stop, Kotho threatens to take Daenerys out to be raped along with the Magi. Ser Jorah intervenes and eventually the blood riders leave. After they leave, Ser Jorah explains that the blood riders died with their Khals and are now beyond fear because they see their death approaching. Daenerys tells Ser Jorah to don his armor. Once the night has left, Daenerys tells Mirri Maz Duur to heal Drogo. The god's wife states that he is beyond help and will be gone by morning. Daenerys pleads with her, insisting that there must be a way, a magical way. Mirri Maz Duur admits she does know some dark magic learned at great cost from a blood mage from the Shadowlands. It will cost a life. Daenerys asks if it means her life, but Mirri Maz Duur assures her it does not. They lower Drogo in a bath and bring his stallion into the tent. Drogo pleads with Daenerys not to use forbidden blood magic and to allow him to kill the Magi. It takes Rakoro, Quaro, and Ago to force the frightened stallion to the tub while Mirri Maz Duur chants. The god's wife uses a red bronze knife covered in glyphs to cut the horse's throat and fill the tub with blood. The god's wife then orders Daenerys, who is now filled with fear, to leave the tent. No one must look upon the old and dark powers the god's wife's spell will wake. Outside, the gathered crowd stares at her. When Ser Jorah, now in his armor, sees the bloody footprints Daenerys leaves, he asks what foolish thing has she done. Daenerys can hear the Magi's voice and see the shadows moving inside the tent. The Dothraki start to mutter and draw back. Drogo's blood riders return with the healing eunuchs. When Kotho sees what is happening, he moves towards the tent, intending to kill Mirri Maz Duur and then Daenerys. He pushes Daenerys aside as she tries to interfere, and she screams for her Khas to stop him. Quaro is quickly cut down. Ser Jorah steps forward to confront Kotho. Without his helmet, the knight is hard-pressed by Kotho's rapid strikes. Then Kotho's Arak cuts into Ser Jorah's hip and catches on the bone, giving Ser Jorah the opportunity to kill him. Meanwhile, the other blood riders and members of Daenerys' Khas have all come to battle. Drogo's whip catches Hago around the neck, giving Rakawa the chance to kill him. Daenerys is hemorrhaging from the birth of her child and crawling toward the tent, screaming the price is too high. The blood rider Kohalo catches her and is about to kill her when Ago's arrow strikes him in the chest. When Daenerys raises her head again, the crowd is dispersing. Some are saddling horses and riding off as fast as the sun sets. She cannot rise, and the shadows are whirling inside the tent. Ser Jorah comes to assist her and calls for her handmaids to get the birthing women. Doria informs him that they believe Daenerys is cursed and are gone. Then she hears someone, possibly Ago, telling them to make to take her to the Magi. Daenerys knows she does not want to go into the tent but cannot speak. Irri and Doreah both agree that they heard Mirri Maz Duur say she knows about birthing. Ser Jorah carries Daenerys into the tent. Arya is catching pigeons on the streets of Flower. Compared with catching cats, pigeons are easy. She uses her wooden practice sword to knock one from the air and snaps its neck. After taking the pigeon, Arya walks by a cart filled with tarts. When she asks for one, she is charged 3 coppers she doesn't have. The man also declines to trade for her pigeon. Arya uses the seeing taught by Syrio Forel and decides she could steal one and get away, but the seller guesses her intention and points out the 2 gold cloaks close by. Even though they are paying her no attention, the sight of the gold cloaks ties Arya's stomach in knots and she lets the man pass. At the Red Keep, which she avoids, Arya can see the heads rotting on spikes. There are all sorts of stories among the small folk. Lord Renly killed King Robert and fled, or the king died hunting a boar, or the king died eating a boar, or the king was poisoned by Varys or by the queen. The stories only agree that the king is dead. Arya wants to leave King's Landing, but the 7 city gates are either closed completely, open only to entering, or closely guarded by Lannister guardsmen and gold cloaks who search everything and ask questions. Once she considered swimming the river, but the current is treacherous and she cannot afford a ferry or a ship. Arya imagines that if she can escape to the countryside, she can dig for roots, find orchards, pick berries, and travel north. There are pot shops in Flea Bottom where she can get her birds cooked or exchanged for some bread or stew, but the people in them seem dangerous. Arya has even been chased a couple of times when leaving, probably for her boots or cloak, but she outran them. She often goes hungry rather than endure the stares of the people in the pot shops. The first night she spent on the streets, her silver bracelet and her bundle of good clothes were stolen while she slept. All the thieves left her were the clothes and cloaks she was wearing, her practice sword and her real sword needle, which she was sleeping on. She misses her brothers. She tried to talk to other children, but must have talked wrong, likely with a northern accent, because the young ones all ran away and the older ones asked questions, called her names, or tried to steal from her. One girl, twice her age, even knocked her down to try to steal her boots and was rewarded with a smack from Arya's practice sword. On her daily circuit to check the city gates, Arya decides to go to the riverfront on her way to the Mudgate to see if she might be able to stow away on a ship. The wharfs are too quiet. On a pier, she sees men in the livery of Winterfell guarding a ship. She learns from a passing longshoreman that the ship is called the Wind Witch out of Myr, which is the same ship that her father contracted to take her and Sansa home. As she approaches the ship, Arya suddenly remembers to use the seeing that Syrio taught her again and realizes she does not know the guards. They call to her and she plays the part of a boy trying to sell them the pigeon, knowing they will recognize her if she runs. The ploy works and they send her away dismissively. Somehow, Arya finds her way back to Flea Bottom and discovers her pigeon is gone, either stolen or dropped. Then she hears the bells of Baelor's Sept and wonders what it means this time. From one of the passers-by, she hears that it is a summoning, and from another she hears that the gold cloaks are carrying the hand of the king to the Sept. Arya follows the masses. All around her, the townsfolk are discussing her father and the rumors of his treason. She pushes through the crowd and finds herself next to the statue of Baelor the Blessed, the Septon King, and climbs up so she can see. From this vantage point, she can hear her father supported by 2 gold cloaks in a rich velvet doublet and a gray cloak, his face drawn with pain and thinner than Arya has ever seen. With him on the pulpit are the High Septon, King Joffrey, Queen Cersei, the Hound, 4 other members of the Kingsguard, Varys, Littlefinger, and Sansa. Arya wonders why Sansa is there and why she looks so happy. Then her father makes a speech in which he confesses that he betrayed the trust of King Robert. A stone from the crown strikes him, causing a gash on his face, and more stones follow. This high septon intones that blessed Baelor taught mercy along with justice and asks Joffrey for his verdict. Joffrey declares that his mother and his betrothed have requested that Lord Eddard be allowed to take the black. Then he declares that while he is king, treason shall never go unpunished, and calls for Sir Ilan Payne to bring him Eddard's head. This causes an uproar around Joffrey as the High Septon, Cersei, and even Varys protest the decree. Arya jumps to the ground, drawing needle, but the crowd quickly engulfs her. She sees Sir Ilan raise ice. He has ice! And hears Sansa screaming. She continues to fight toward them, using needle to cut a path. A hand shoots out to grab her and hold her tight, forcing her to drop the sword. Then the smelly old man who has grabbed her tells her not to look and calls her a boy. Then she hears a soft sighing noise. Arya looks at the smelly man and recognizes him as Yoren of the Night's Watch, who talked with her father. He tells her to keep her mouth shut and that she is coming with him. Yoren shakes her hard when she tries to speak. Once the crowd starts to disperse, he hands her back needle, saying that he hopes she can use it. He keeps calling her a boy and does not give her the opportunity to deny it, insisting that she is trying to say she is not a boy. Yoren shoves her inside a doorway and a blade flashes at Arya's face. She wrenches back her head but cannot escape because Yoren has a strong grip on her hair. Bran is watching Sir Roger Cassel train the new young recruits in the yard of Winterfell. Maester Luwin is taking measurements of the comet through his lens tube. Bran comments that the recruits do not fight very well and is told that Lord Eddard took the cream of the guard with him to King's Landing, and then Robb took the rest along with all the likely men for leagues around. Men are needed to walk the walls of Winterfell. Bran stares resentfully at the boys below, remembering how he knocked Prince Tommen down many times. Then Bran suggests that he could fight from Hodor's back, but Luwin dismisses the idea as impractical. Bran talks about the blind knight Simeon Star Eyes, but Luwin insists that that is only a story and that Bran must put his dreams aside. The mention of dreams reminds Bran of his new dream of the three-eyed crow, a dream that was very sad. He tells Luwin how the crow brought him down to the crypts and his father was there. His father was sad because of Jon. When he woke up, Bran wanted to go down to the crypts to see if his father was there, but Hodor would not take him. Luwin tells Bran that Eddard will be down there someday, but not for many years. Bran insists the dream was real and that his father was there. In order to dispel the boy's delusion, Maester Luwin calls for Osha, who tells them that she has lived beyond the wall, so a hole in the ground will not scare her. Because of Osha's good behavior, her chains have been removed, but the shackles remain to show she is not totally trusted. But she carries Bran in her arms, but he does not mind. The vaults seem very dark and gloomy. Summer and Osha seem uncomfortable. When Bran states that the men represented by the granite statues were the kings of winter, Osha tells him that the winter has no king. If he had seen a winter, he would know. They proceed down the long corridor past the statues, but Summer refuses to leave the steps. Bran tells the accomplishments of the different lords and kings: Jon Stark, Rickard Stark, Theon Stark, Brandon the Shipwright, Brandon the Burner, Roderick Stark, Torrhen Stark, and Cregan Stark. When they get to the end with the statues of Brandon Stark, Lyanna Stark, and Lord Rickard Stark, Luwin sticks his arm into the future tomb of Eddard, and Shaggy Dog springs out and savages Maester Luwin's arm. Bran calls for Summer, who slams into Shaggy Dog, knocking the wolf off Luwin. Osha goes to assist Luwin. As the wolves fight, Rickon appears at the mouth of Eddard's tomb, telling Luwin to leave his father be. When Bran tells Rickon father is not there, Rickon states that he saw him last night and that he is coming home. Luwin, now looking unsure, tells Rickon that Shaggy Dog was supposed to be chained. Rickon replies that he does not like to be chained, and Luwin states that he is now the third man Shaggy Dog has savaged, and it will be only a matter of time before he kills someone. Bran calmly states that they will wait in Maester Luwin's tower, which Luwin states is quite impossible. Osha replies that Bran is the Lord. Rickon agrees to come if Shaggy comes too. Maester Luwin reluctantly follows. They enter Maester Luwin's cluttered turret, where Osha bandaged the Maester's wounds, following his instructions. Luwin tries to explain to the boys about the logic of both of them dreaming the same dream. He says that Rickon is too young to understand, to which Rickon states that he is 4. Then he tells Bran that he is old enough to know that dreams are just dreams. Osha adds in that some dreams are just dreams and some are not. The children of the forest could teach him something about dreams. Bran starts to go into the stories that old Nan told about the children of the forest. They knew the songs of the trees, flew like birds, swam like fish, talked to animals, and made beautiful music. The Maester says that a man who trusts in spells duels with a glass sword. Luwin takes out several arrowheads made of dragon glass, or obsidian, which the children of the forest forge. He tells them that the children use shirts of woven leaves and greaves of bark in place of armor and carried blades of obsidian. Osha comments that they still do. Bran and Rickon each take some arrowheads. The children lived during the Dawn Age, before the coming of men in the land now called the Seven Kingdoms. They lived in the depths of the woods, in caves and crannogs and secret tree towns. Their wise men were called greenseers and carved the faces in the weirwoods to watch over the forest. No one knows how long they reigned or where they came from. 12,000 years ago, the first men crossed the broken arm of Dorne before it was broken. The first men were mounted, tall of stature, and wielded bronze weapons. The first men chopped down the weirwood trees to build holdfast, and the enraged children of the forest started a war. The greenseers supposedly used dark magic to make the sea rise and break the landmass that is now the broken arm of Dorne. Finally, a truce was called, and the leaders of both races met at the Isle of Faces in the God's Eye. After the pact was forged, the green men formed to keep watch over the Isle of Faces, and the first men eventually adopted the old gods worshipped by the children. The singing of the pact ended the Dawn Age and began the Age of Heroes. The pact started 4,000 years of friendship between the children and the first men. While the kingdoms of the first men endured, so did the pact, all through the Age of Heroes, the Long Night, and the birth of the Seven Kingdoms. Eventually, the Andal invaders came with steel, fire, and the seven-pointed star of the new gods. The war lasted for hundreds of years, and the Andals burned most of the weirwoods remaining in the south, slaughtering the children where they found them. The children fled north. During the story, Osha adds that there are still children north of the wall, and also giants and other old races. Maester Luwin is not happy with Osha filling the boys with folly. Luwin's tail is cut off when the direwolves start howling. Now Bran is sure that he knew it. The direwolves quiet and a bloodied messenger raven appears. Even Maester Luwin is not sure he wants to know what is in the message. Bran, hugging Rickon hard, asks about the message, and Osha tells him he knows, while putting a hand gently on his head. Maester Luwin reads the message and tears up as he tells them that they will need to find a stone carver that knew their father's likeness well. Sansa stays in her room in Maegor's holdfast, sleeping, sobbing, and sleeping again. She does not eat the food the servants bring. When she dreams, she relives her father's beheading. She remembers wanting to look away but not being able to. She remembers that all the people were screaming, and she remembers Joffrey smiling and feeling safe until he said those words. She believes that she will be executed, and the thought does not bother her. She knows songs will be sung about her. She even considers throwing herself from her window, but cannot summon the courage and runs back to her bed sobbing. She dreams of footsteps that belong to Sir Ilyn Payne coming for her with ice. In the dreams, when Sir Ilyn is at her door, she realizes she is naked and covers herself and screams out that she will be good. Finally, Joffrey arrives with the Hound and 2 other of the King's Guard. Joffrey throws the curtains of the bed open and tells her that she will attend him in court that afternoon. Sansa begs him to leave her be, but Joffrey threatens to have his Hound force her. When she does not move, he orders the Hound to get her out of bed. She struggles as her blankets fall away to show that she only wears a thin bedgown. The Hound then tells her, "Do as you are bid, child. Dress." He pushes her to the wardrobe almost gently. She tells Joffrey that she did as she was asked and now only wants to go home. Joffrey tells her that he is still to marry her, so she will stay here. She responds that she does not want to marry him because he killed her father despite promising mercy. Joffrey insists he was merciful. He gave her father a clean death. Sansa now truly sees Joffrey for the first time and cannot believe she ever found him handsome. Sansa whispers that she hates him. Joffrey tells her that his mother has said he should not strike his wife, so he orders Sir Meryn Trent to strike her with the back of his gloved fist. Sansa sprawls to the floor, her ear bloody. She agrees to attend court and everyone but the Hound leaves. The Hound tells her that she should save herself some pain and give Joffrey what he wants. She is to smile, smell sweet, and to be his lady love. 2 maids creep timidly into the chamber. Sansa instructs them to prepare a bath and to get powder to hide the bruise on her face. She is amazed at how dirty her bath water becomes, not having washed since her father's execution. She chooses the green silk gown she wore at the tourney of the hand when Joffrey was sweet to her. Maybe he will remember and be gentle. Sir Meryn escorts her to the throne room. From her observation of Sir Meryn, Sansa realizes that he feels nothing towards her. She is only an object. Sansa tells Sir Meryn that he is no true knight, which she thinks the Hound would find amusing, but she gets no reaction. She is alone on the balcony as Joffrey dispenses what he considers justice. Mostly, he lets his small council make the decision, but when he intervenes, he will not be dissuaded. She sees the ugly face of Janos Slynt at the council table and remembers how he threw down her father for Sir Ilyn to behead. She also notices how he nods approvingly at each of Joffrey's brutal judgments. She wishes some hero would cut off his head but knows there are no heroes, remembering Peter Baelish telling her that life is not a song. Sansa thinks, in life, the monsters win. The last case is a singer accused of singing a song ridiculing King Robert Baratheon. He is made to sing the song before the court and Sansa thinks it is funny. In some verses, it seems like he is singing about the queen. Joffrey gives the man the option of keeping his fingers or his tongue. When the court is dismissed, Sansa flees the balcony only to be met by Joffrey, Sir Meryn, and the Hound. Joffrey examines her and tells her she looks much better. Sansa thanks him with hollow words. Joffrey then tells her to walk with him. The touch of his hand now makes her skin crawl. He asks her what she will get him for his coming name day, but Sansa admits that she was unaware it was near. Joffrey tells her that she is truly a stupid girl and that his mother has said so, and is worried their children will be stupid as well. Despite her expectations, the words still hurt Sansa and she realizes that the Hound was right. She is only a little bird repeating the words they taught her. Joffrey then tells her that he will get her with child as soon as possible, and if the child is stupid, she will lose her head and he will find a smarter wife. He asks when she can have children, and she tells him, not being able to look at him, that Septa Mordane told her 12 or 13. She now realizes they are going up onto the battlements and begs not to go there. Joffrey insists that he wants to show her how traitors are punished. He also threatens to have Sir Meryn drag her if she refuses. The Hound encourages her to go, and Sansa realizes that one way or the other she must go up, so she goes willingly. It seems like the climb's 1,000 steps to the top. She looks out across the city to the countryside beyond and lets her imagination cross the hundreds of leagues north to her home in Winterfell. Joffrey demands to know what she is looking at and instructs her to look at the heads of her father, her scepter, and a dozen more. Her father's head does not look recognizable or even real. Sansa decides that they can make her look, but they cannot make her see. Joffrey is disappointed by Sansa's hollow and stoic reaction. Sansa cannot understand why they would kill Septa Mordain, but Joffrey insists she was a traitor as well. He asks again what Sansa will give him for his name day, as a preamble to declaring that instead he will bring Sansa the head of her traitor brother Robb. Joffrey explains that Robb used treachery and deceit to defeat his uncle Jaime. Sansa suggests that Robb may give her Joffrey's head. This mistake results in 2 harder blows by Sir Meryn. Joffrey commands her to clean off the blood. For a fleeting moment, Sansa realizes that it would only take a shove to send Joffrey over the parapet to splatter far below. Just as suddenly, the moment is gone when the Hound comes between her and Joffrey to dab the blood from her broken lip with surprising gentleness. She thanks the Hound. She is a good girl and remembers her courtesies. In her dreams, Daenerys keeps hearing, "You do not want to wake the dragon, do you?" She is walking down a hall, her bare feet leaving bloody footprints. Suddenly, she is with Drogo, under the open sky of the Dothraki Sea. Drogo is stroking her, waking her passions, and when he enters her, the stars are gone. Great wings fill the sky, and the world takes flame. Then she sees Ser Jorah's drawn and sorrowful face, telling her that the last dragon was Rhaegar Targaryen, while standing over a hot brazier containing red-hot stone eggs. In turn, he is replaced by Viserys with his molten gold crown screaming, "The dragon does not beg, slut, and I will be crowned." Then he painfully pinches her nipples, and suddenly Daenerys is frantically running to a distant red door that is her salvation. She knows that the darkness is there, but she does not dare look back or she will be lost. She sees her son as a grown warrior, proud and tall, before flames consume him. Then the ghosts of kings are lining the hallway, urging her to go faster. Then she is flying over the Dothraki Sea, and all are fleeing before her. She finally throws open the red door to see her brother Rhaegar, the last dragon, in his armor, but when she opens his visor, she sees her own face. Daenerys wakes to the taste of ashes, with Jiqui standing over her. Her body hurts very much. She calls for something, but does not know what. Jiqui says yes, and bolts from the tent shouting. When they return, Daenerys is crawling towards her dragon eggs. Ser Jorah carries her back to bed and tells her to sleep, and then Mirri Maz Duur gives her something in a cup. A dreamless sleep takes her. It is dark when Daenerys wakes again. She calls for her handmaidens, and they attend to her. They tell her that she has been sick for a long time. Then Mirri Maz Duur gives her wine, and she falls asleep asking for a dragon's egg. The next time she wakes, Daenerys has the pale dragon's egg in her arms, and it is warm. There is a fine sheen of perspiration on her that she names Dragon's Dew. There is no fever, and she feels strong. She calls for her handmaidens and asks for a bath. Mirri Maz Duur, Ser Jorah, Drogo, and her child. Her handmaids avoid answering about Drogo and her child, and Daenerys knows that her child is dead. Mirri Maz Duur and Ser Jorah enter to find Daenerys standing over the other eggs, which are all warm. However, when asked, Ser Jorah does not feel the heat from the eggs. Ser Jorah looks gaunt and limps from his wounds. He tells Daenerys that her son never lived, but Mirri Maz Duur tells her that the child was monstrous, lizard-like with scales. His skin fell off, revealing a body filled with grave worms and the stink of corruption, as it had been dead for years. She states that her son was strong when Ser Jorah brought her into the tent. Mirri Maz Duur explains that death was in the tent and that the shadows touched her. Daenerys realizes that Ser Jorah killed her child by taking her into the tent for love and loyalty to her. Daenerys states that she thought the life of the horse would be payment enough, and is told that was a lie she told herself. Daenerys is not sure if she knew. Daenerys realizes that the life of the horse, her son, Quaro, Kotho, Hago, and Kahalo paid for the life of Drogo. She asks to see what the price bought. Ser Jorah cannot dissuade her and has to help her stand since she is weaker than she thought. Outside, in the glaring sun, Daenerys can see there is little left. A scattering of tents, a few score of horses, and perhaps 100 people. They are the old, the frightened, and the sick. Drogo reminds her that a Khal who cannot ride is no Khal. She learns that Kopono declared himself Khal first, and Jaco after him. They took most of the riders, the herds, and the slaves because Daenerys' own cause was too weak to stop them. It is the right of the strong to take from the weak. Most of the rest left during the following nights. Mago, now a blood rider to Khal Jaco, seized Erowa, whom Daenerys had denied him, and raped and murdered her. Daenerys repeats her mantra, "If I look back, I am lost," and swears that Mago and Jaco will die screaming. Irri warns her that Jaco now has 20,000 riders, but Daenerys insists that she is the blood of the dragon. Then she asks to see Drogo. Drogo lies unmoving, unseeing, and covered in blood flies. Daenerys asks why he is outside alone, and Ser Jorah explains that he seems to like the warmth and staring in the sun with eyes that cannot see. He will follow where led and eat if food is put in his mouth, but otherwise does nothing. Daenerys faces Mirri Maz Duur, who insists that Drogo is alive. Daenerys responds that such is not life for a man that was as alive as Drogo. Then Daenerys asks Mirri Maz Duur when Drogo will be as he was. The Magi replies, "When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas go dry and mountains blow in the wind like leaves, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child, then he will return, and not before." Daenerys sends the others away and then accuses Mirri Maz Duur of knowing, of cheating her, and murdering her child. Mirri Maz Duur replies that it was wrong of the Khalasar to burn her temple, and now the stallion who mounts the world will burn no cities and trample no nations. Daenerys reminds the Magi that she saved her, but Mirri Maz Duur asks what Daenerys saved when 3 warriors had already raped her, burned her home and her temple, and cut off the heads of her neighbors and friends. Daenerys insists that she saved her life, but the Magi tells her to look at her Khal and see what life is worth when all else is gone. Daenerys orders her men to bind Mirri Maz Duur and take her away. The woman only smiles at her. Daenerys orders Drogo brought into her tent. She bathes him herself and washes his hair until darkness falls. She thinks of their first ride beneath the open sky and of when they made Rhaego. She is too raw from the miscarriage for intercourse, but uses other means in an attempt to use the magic of love to bring Drogo back. It does not work, and her husband remains comatose. When dawn breaks, Daenerys kisses Drogo for the last time and then smothers him with a soft silk pillow. The army has just returned to the inn at the crossroads when a messenger arrives with word of Ser Jaime Lannister's capture and the defeat of his army at Riverrun. Lord Tywin is upset that the Starks have his son. The news makes Tyrion think back on their grueling countermarch. After realizing that Robb Stark had split his forces, Lord Tywin set a grueling pace back towards the Trident in an attempt to reach Riverrun before the Starks. They left the bodies of the weak and the wounded in their wake every day, and it was all for nothing. Robb Stark has beaten them there by many days. Sir Harys Swift bemoans Jaime's decision to split his army into 3 camps, but Sir Kevan Lannister explains calmly that Riverrun's position at the fork of the Tumblestones and the Red Fork forces any besieger to do just that, placing 1 army north of the Tumblestone, 1 south of the Red Fork, and 1 between the 2 rivers to the west. Jaime's army had no warning. Few of their outriders returned, and those who did had seen nothing. The blame for their disappearance fell on a small raiding force commanded by Mark Piper, and Jaime rode out personally to deal with them in the Whispering Wood and did not return. Robb's forces attacked the north camp first during the night. The Blackfish led the attack, cutting down the sentries. When Lord Andros Brax saw that the northern camp was under attack, he led the men of the western camp across the Tumblestone in rafts to join the battle. However, the current pushed them downstream into range of the catapults of Riverrun. Many of the rafts were sunk or overturned, and Lord Brax was drowned by his heavy plate armor. Those few who reached the far bank found the enemy waiting for them. Sir Flemont Brax, Lord Brax's son, is disquieted to hear of the death of his father. The camp between the rivers was overwhelmed as well. While Lord Brax was attempting to cross, 2 columns of armored horse swept in from the west, led by Robb Stark himself with his direwolf at his side. A few Lannister pikemen managed to hold against the first charge, but Lord Titus Blackwood led a sortie from Riverrun to take them from the rear. Great John Umber fired the siege towers, and Lord Blackwood liberated the prisoners, including Sir Edmure Tully. The South Camp, under the command of Sir Forley Prester, was able to retreat in good order back towards the Golden Tooth, with 2,000 spears and as many bowmen. But the Tyroshi sellsword in his camp struck their banners and went over to the enemy. Kevin curses Jaime for not heeding his warning about mercenaries. Sir Harris exclaims that all is lost. Jaime's host is all destroyed or put to flight, and the Starks and the Tullys now stand astride their supply lines, cutting Lord Tywin's host off from their supplies and their homeland. Robb Stark can even march on Casterly Rock if he wishes. Sir Harris insists that they must sue for peace. At that, Tyrion shatters his wine cup against the wall, declaring that Sir Harris will have better luck drinking from his broken cup than making peace with Robb Stark now that Joffrey has beheaded Eddard Stark. Sir Adam Marbrand insists that 2 battles does not make a war, while Lord Leo Lefford suggests a truce and an exchange of prisoners. Tyrion only scoffs that the Starks hold far more prisoners than they do, and that Eddard Stark's head will not get his brother Jaime back. Robb is winning. When Lefford mentions that they hold Robb's sisters, Marbrand states that only an utter fool would exchange 2 girls for Jaime. Tyrion also shoots down Lefford's suggestions of a monetary ransom, declaring that the Starks can melt Jaime's armor if they need gold. Sir Harris then suggests that they get their friends in the court to join them and to raise a new host at Casterly Rock. Lord Tywin has been even quieter than usual. After reiterating that they have his son, Tywin orders everyone but Tyrion and Kevin out. Tyrion is going to ask for wine, but his father gives him his untouched. Lord Tywin tells Tyrion that he was right about Eddard Stark. Alive, Eddard could have been used to bargain a peace and buy time to deal with Robert's brothers. Tywin states the execution was madness and rebuffs Tyrion's attempts to excuse Joffrey for his youth, though at least Joffrey did not marry a whore. Lord Tywin explains that Varys has heard reports that Renly Baratheon has wed Margaery Tyrell and declares himself king, with all the might of Highgarden and Storm's End behind him. Lord Tywin also informs them that Cersei has commanded him to march to defend King's Landing. Tyrion can tell that Tywin is not happy about being commanded. Cersei has not told Joffrey of Renly's claim, fearing her son will insist on leading the city watch against Renly and leaving the city undefended against Stannis Baratheon. Lord Tywin admits that from the beginning he has considered Stannis the most dangerous, and yet the Lord of Dragonstone has done nothing. Varys has only heard whisperings that Stannis is building a fleet, hiring sellswords, and seeking the counsel of a Shadowbinder from Asshai. Tywin then details their position on a map. With Jaime's defeat, they are in a bad situation. Roose Bolton's remnants are to the north, enemies hold the Twins and Moat Cailin, and Robb Stark is to the west, so they cannot retreat to Lannisport without giving battle, while Jaime's army has ceased to exist, and Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr plague their foraging parties. Then there is Dragonstone, Storm's End, and Highgarden to the south, calling their banners. Tyrion's jest that at least Rhaegar Targaryen is still dead goes unappreciated. If they remain where they are, they might get caught between 3 armies. Tywin explains that he plans to go to Harrenhal to confront Robb Stark. Sir Adam Marbrand will screen their movements, while Gregor Clegane, Vargo Holt, and Sir Omri Lorch with 300 men will set fire to the Riverlands from south of the Red Fork. Once Sir Kevin leaves to issue the orders, Lord Tywin offers to let Tyrion's clansmen ride with Vargo Holt, but Tyrion wishes to keep them close. Lord Tywin insists that Tyrion must learn to control them then, because he will not have King's Landing pillaged. Tyrion does not understand until his father explains that he is sending him to court to act as hand of the king and clean up the mess Cersei and the small council have created. Lord Tywin goes on to rant about the raising of Jaina Slynt, the dishonoring of Sir Barristan Selmy, who lent honor to any man he served, and the appointment of the Hound to the Kingsguard. He also tasks Tyrion with bringing Joffrey under control if Cersei continues to fail, and give instructions to execute any consulars who play Tyrion false. When Tyrion asks why he is being sent, Tywin states that it is because Tyrion is his son. Tyrion, however, thinks it is because Tywin has given up Jaime for lost. As he leaves, Tywin commands that Tyrion is not to take his whore to court. Tyrion sits for a long while in the common room before going to his bed with Shae and whispering that he is of a mind to take her to King's Landing. Late at night, Jon saddles a mare in the stables of Castle Black. As he mounts up, Sam appears in the doorway, insisting that Jon cannot do this. Jon warns Sam to get out of his way since he does not want to hurt him. When the fat boy refuses, Jon spurs his horse and forces Sam to leap out of the way, stumbling and falling. The mare leaps over Sam. As he heads south down the King's Road, Jon hopes that Sam has not hurt himself getting out of the way. The whole castle is silent and there is no one to see him leave. All the sentries are atop the wall, looking north. Jon trusts that Sam loves him enough to give him a head start. In truth, he does not believe the timid boy can summon the courage to disturb the guards to wake the Lord Commander in the night. As he rides, Jon flexes his burned hand, appreciating having the bandages off. Jon stays on the King's Road in the moonlight, knowing that he must get as far from Castle Black as he can before dawn, planning to then go overland to confuse the pursuit. When he fails to bring the Lord Commander's breakfast at dawn, they will search his cell, discover Longclaw, and now he has deserted. It was hard to leave the sword, but in the end, Jon followed Jorah Mormont's example. The thought of betraying old Jorah Mormont trust bothers Jon, but it cannot be helped. Jon is still not sure he is doing the honorable thing. Jon thinks that the Southerners have it easier. They can talk to their septons to help sort out right from wrong, whereas the heart trees do not talk. Once out of sight of Castle Black, Jon slows his pace to spare the horse. He hopes to trade her for a new one, and cannot do that if she is injured or blown. He will require an entire new set of clothes. His black wool, leather, and steel will draw the suspicions of everyone north of the neck. Once Maester Aemon's ravens take flight, not even Winterfell will offer him refuge. Yet fond memories of Winterfell are not why Jon has forsaken his vows. He is his father's son and Robb's brother. Maester Aemon was right about the pain of choosing, but Tyrion Lannister was also right about denying a hard truth. Jon is done with denying the truth. For the rest of his life, he will be accursed and outcast, but it will be worth it so long as he lives long enough to join Robb in avenging their father. Jon even envisions the moment he will reveal himself to Robb. Yet those visions stall at Robb's reaction when Jon cannot picture his brother smiling. Jon's mind flashes to the deserter that their father beheaded and to what his father told the deserter about vows. He wondered what his father's reaction might have been if the deserter had been his brother Benjen. He thinks it must be different. The thought of being rejected and executed does not bear thinking about, so Jon begins to ride harder again, as if to outrun his doubts. He does not fear death, but he does not want to die like that. He is not a true Stark, but he can die like one. Let them say there were 4 sons. As Jon approaches the lights of Mole Town, Ghost disappears, apparently to go hunting. Jon does not concern himself, knowing the direwolf will follow at his own pace. Once he is well beyond the village, Jon stops to drink runoff from the snow and finds his fingers ache worse than they have in days, and he has a pounding headache. Since his horse is lathered, he walks. Jon still has not seen his wolf, and it concerns him. He decides to eat a sparse meal to give Ghost a chance to catch up. As he is finishing, Jon hears horses coming from the north. Knowing they are too close to outrun, Jon quickly takes cover with the horse in a grove of sentinel trees off the road. As the riders ride up, Jon quickly recognizes the voice of the boys of his former training syndicate, Gren, Pip, Toad, Halder, and Maethar. Jon's mare snorts, and Halder hears it as the others argue about where Jon might be, and asks the others to be quiet. Jon realizes that Sam did not go to the Lord Commander, but he did not go to sleep either. Jon is concerned that the other boys will be named deserters if they are not in their beds by dawn. Just as the boys are about to pass him by, Ghost comes loping through the woods and spooks Jon's horse, giving away his position. Jon tries to flee, but the boys are on him before he can. He draws his sword and attempts to frighten them into backing down, but the boys are unafraid. Jon demands to know what they want, and they explain that they are here to take him back where he belongs. Jon insists that he belongs with his brother Robb, but the others remind him that they are his brothers now. Jon wonders why they cannot leave him in peace. They start reciting their vows, Jon cursing them. Pip moves his horse closer, and the others surround him. Pip grabs the reins and tells Jon that he must either come back with them or kill them. Jon knows he can easily kill them all, but agrees to go back, cursing them all. Ghost comes out of the trees, and Jon glares at him, but Ghost's eyes seem to have a knowing look. Pip notes that they have to hurry because they must be back before first light. Otherwise, the Lord Commander will have all their heads. They make it back an hour before dawn. To Jon, it no longer seems like home, and he decides he will bide his time before his next attempt and avoid the King's Road next time. The next morning, as Jon is serving his breakfast, the Lord Commander reminds Jon of his comment that the things men love destroyed them, and that the hard truths are the ones to hold tight. Then he comments that Jon looks weary and asks if his moonlight ride was exhausting. When Jon expresses his surprise, Mormont explains that Maester Aemon told him that Jon would leave, and that he told Aemon that Jon would come back. He adds that he knew honor would bring Jon back. Jon points out that his friends brought him back, but Mormont replies that he did not say it was Jon's honor. He then tells Jon that he had a watch put over him, and that if his friends had not brought him back, he would have been taken away. Jon thinks his life is forfeit and declares that he is not afraid to die. Mormont says he hopes Jon is not afraid to live either, pointing out that if they had beheaded every man who rode to Molestown for the night, only Ghost would guard the wall. Mormont also knows that Jon is plotting to desert again. When Jon keeps silent, Mormont asks if he thinks he can actually bring his father back to life or make any difference to Robb's war. Each of Robb's bannermen command more swords than the entire Night's Watch. Mormont goes so far as to point out that his own sister Mage and her daughters rode south with Robb, but that his place is the wall. Mormont asks where Jon believes his place is. Jon thinks that he has no place, no mother, and now no father, but only says he does not know. Mormont says that he knows Jon's place. The cold winds are rising. Cotter Pike's men have reported mammoths and huge misshapen tracks near Eastwatch. Dennis Mallister has reported that the wildlings are abandoning their villages near the Shadow Tower, and Quarren Halfhand has taken a captive who revealed that Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, is massing his people in some secret stronghold for an unknown purpose. Then the Lord Commander asks if Jon thinks his brother's war is more important than theirs is. He also asks Jon if he thinks it matters who sits the Iron Throne when dead men come hunting in the night. Jon has to agree. He has never thought of it that way before. Mormont goes on to say that he believes Jon and Ghost were meant to be here because the blood of the first men who built the wall is strong in the Starks of Winterfell. They remember things other men have forgotten. In addition, Ghost led them to 2 whites. Some men, like Jeremy Riker, might call that happenstance, but Mormont stresses that Sir Jeremy is dead and he is alive. He wants Jon and Ghost with him when they go beyond the wall. He wants to find Benjen Stark, alive or dead. When Jon asks what he means, Mormont declares that he will not sit meekly and wait for the snows to come. The Night's Watch will ride in force against the wildlings, the others, and whatever else is out there. Mormont plans to command them himself. He continues that the Lord Commander's steward also serves as his squire, but he does not want to be looking over his shoulder. Therefore he asks Jon, "Are you a brother of the Night's Watch, or only a bastard boy who wants to play at war?" Jon pauses to apologize mentally to all his family before declaring that he is Mormont's man and that he will not run again. Mormont expresses his approval and orders Jon to go put on his sword again. To Catelyn, it seems 1,000 years since she left Riverrun by boat with an infant Robb to head north to Winterfell for the first time. Now she is returning by boat across the same river with a son who wears plate and mail instead of swaddling clothes. With them in the boat is Theon Greyjoy, and in the boat following are Brynden Tully, Greatjon Umber, and Rickard Karstark. As they draw near, the men on the walls cheer them as the banners of House Tully fly from every rampart, but Catelyn cannot feel anything but sadness since she received news of her husband's death, and wonders if her heart will ever lift again. After passing under the wall through the wide water gate, they are greeted on the water stair by Catelyn's brother Sir Edmure Tully and Lord Titus Blackwood. A worn-looking Edmure embraces Catelyn, expresses his condolences, and promises vengeance against the Lannisters. Catelyn only says that it will not bring Ned back, then states she has to see her father. She is escorted to her father's solar in the keep, which is three-sided like Riverrun itself. Along the way, Catelyn asks about her father, and, as expected, Edmure explains that he is dying. When Catelyn demands to know why she was not notified, Edmure explains that with the 7 kingdoms so volatile, their father forbid it. If word had gotten out that he was ailing, the Lannisters might have attacked. Catelyn immediately blames herself, remembering it was she who sparked the war by arresting Tyrion Lannister. The solar is also triangular with a balcony to the east from which the walls, battlements, and river fort can be seen. Lord Hoster's bed has been moved onto the balcony so he can sit in the sun and watch the rivers. He is shrunken, looking much older and frailer than Catelyn remembers. Lord Hoster calls her Little Cat and tells how he wanted to be awake when she arrived. He was afraid he would not wake again. He speaks weakly and is racked by spasms of pain. He defends his decision to keep news of his illness a secret, but admits that he was afraid he would die before seeing her again, especially once the siege began. She tells him that Robb is here, they have Jaime Lannister in irons, and Riverrun is free again. This leads Lord Hoster to tell her of the joy he had as he watched the battle from the battlements. Her father asks if it was Robb who won the battle, and Catelyn tells him that it was. Then she mentions that Sir Brynden was also an important figure. Lord Hoster seems surprised by the mention of the Blackfish and asks if Lysa has come down from the Vale as well. Catelyn cannot lie and explains that Lysa is frightened and believes her and her son are only safe in the Eyrie. Hoster is very disappointed that he will not see her. Lord Hoster agrees to see Robb, who he remembers has his Tully eyes. When Catelyn presses on to ask if he will see his brother, her father asks if Sir Brynden has married anyone yet. Catelyn is saddened that her father cannot allow the old feud to rest. She tells him that his brother has not wed, nor will he ever. Lord Hoster launches into a weak rant, criticizing Brynden's choice to defy him and never marry, saying that Bethany Redwyne is still waiting for Brynden. Catelyn has to remind her father that Bethany Redwyne has long ago married Lord Mathis Rowan and has 3 children. Her father states there were also offers from others, including Lord Janos Bracken's daughter or any of the 3 by Walder Frey. Catelyn tells how she would not have made it to Riverrun without Brynden, and her father agrees that he was always a warrior. Lord Hoster agrees to see his brother later, but he is too tired to fight now. Hoster is asleep before Catelyn leaves the solar. Brynden is talking with the Riverrun guards when Catelyn returns, but he anxiously asks about his brother, and Catelyn confirms that he is dying. When Brynden asks if Hoster will see him, Catelyn conveys that he will, but he is too tired to fight. Sir Brynden only laughs that his brother will be chiding him about the Redwyne girl as they light his funeral pyre. Catelyn smiles and asks where she can find Robb. In the halls, Catelyn finds Theon regaling the garrison an account of the battle of how Grey Wind tore off a man's arm and drove the Lannister horses mad. When asked, Theon tells her that he believes Robb went to the Godswood. She realizes that this is just what Eddard would do after a battle. Catelyn finds Robb praying with those of his lord's bannermen who hold the old gods, including the Greatjon, Rickard Stark, Mage Mormont, Galbert Glover, and Lord Titus Blackwood, one of the very few followers of the old god south of the neck. She feels she should not disturb their prayers. As she walks through the godswood, memories of her childhood beset Catelyn. Here her father taught her to ride. There Edmure fell and broke his arm, and under that bower she and Lysa played at kissing with Peter Baelish, and he tried to tongue them with mint from the godswood on his breath. As Robb rises from his prayer, Catelyn wonders if Robb, who has ridden into battle and killed men with his sword, has ever been kissed in the godswood. When he sees her, Robb declares that they must call a council. Catelyn tries to get him to see his very sick grandfather, but Robb insists that they must first meet to discuss the news that Renly Baratheon has proclaimed himself king. Catelyn says she had expected it to be Lord Stannis, and Galbert Glover says they all did. The meeting is held in the Great Hall at 4 long tables. Lord Hoster is too weak to attend, but the attendance includes Edmure and the Blackfish, with the Tully bannermen arrayed around them, Lord Janos Bracken, Lord Titus Blackwood, Lord Jason Mallister, Sir Mark Piper, Sir Stevron Frey, Carl Vance, a lord now following his father's death, and Lord Lyman Darry, son of Raymond Darry. The smaller number of the northern lords sit opposite, Robb, Theon, Rickard Karstark, grief-stricken over the death of his 2 sons, Mage Mormont, Galbert Glover, and Great John Umber. The lords argue late into the night, with every lord taking full advantage of his own right to speak. Roose Bolton has reformed their other hosts at the mouth of the causeway. Lord Tywin Lannister has crossed the Trident and is making for Harrenhal. Some lords favor marching east to meet Lord Tywin at Harrenhal. Mark Piper favors marching west to Casterly Rock. Jason Mallister suggests they simply stay athwart Lord Tywin's supply lines and rest their troops. Janos Bracken proposes they pledge fealty to Renly and move south to join him. Robb, speaking for the first time, insists that Renly is not the king. The lords protest that Robb cannot mean to hold to Joffrey, who executed his father. Robb insists that that makes Joffrey evil, but does not make Renly king. As the younger brother, Renly cannot be king before Stannis. That splits the room again, with some favoring Stannis and some still favoring Renly, who is crowned and has Highgarden and Storm's End to support him. Robb states he does not know what to do since Joffrey is the true heir, but he executed his father based on a lie. Sir Stevron Frey, old Walder Frey's heir, suggests that they make peace and allow Renly and Joffrey to fight and oppose or submit to the winner as they choose. Lord Tywin would welcome the truce and the return of his son. This is met with shouts of outrage. Catelyn suggests a peace. Robb reminds her that the Lannisters murdered her husband and that he will have no peace with them, laying his sword on the table to emphasize his point. Catelyn points out that the war was started to free Eddard and to protect the Riverlands. The Riverlands are now safe, and no amount of vengeance will bring her husband back. She wants her daughters safe, for Robb to be safe and ruling from Winterfell and to go home. Sir Brynden questioned what the terms of peace could be that would prevent another war in the future. Rickard Karstark and Janos Bracken question what their sacrifices have been worth if peace is made now. Titus Blackwood knows that if they make peace with King Joffrey, are they not traitors to King Renly? Catelyn's hopes of peace shatter before her eyes. The meeting breaks down into another argument of which king to support, until the Great John rises to his feet and silences them all. He spits upon all the kings and declares that Renly and Stannis are nothing to him. He asks why they should rule over him and his from some flowery seat in the south when they know nothing about the north. Even their gods are wrong. The Great John asks why they should not rule themselves again. It was the dragons they submitted to, and the dragons are all dead. Then the immense man points his 2-handed greatsword at Robb and proclaims, "There's the only king I mean to bend my knee to, my lords, the king in the north." The other bannermen all take up the call, even the river lords who have never been ruled from Winterfell, and for the first time in 300 years, there is a king in the north. Daenerys and her Khals build a funeral pyre for Khal Drogo, as is the Thraki custom. There is little wood in the land, so much of what they find is gnarled. They lay the logs in a square and fill the center with brush, grass, and bark shavings. Aggo and Rakawo kill a stallion from their now meager herd so that Drogo might have a mount in the afterlife. It is nowhere near as fine as Drogo's red, but there are few in the world that are. Mirri Maz Duur believes that Daenerys is attempting to use blood magic to resurrect her Khal, and insists that without the proper spells, the blood is nothing. The Magi even goes so far as to offer assistance in exchange for being released from her bonds, but Daenerys orders her silence. On the platform, they pile Drogo's treasures, but Daenerys does not let the weapons she receives as bride gifts be added, insisting they are hers. Ser Jorah is wary of her intentions and pleads with her to let Drogo go and come with him to see the wonders of the East. Daenerys assures him that she does not plan to sacrifice herself on her husband's pyre. When Ser Jorah calls her princess, Daenerys insists that he call her queen. Her brother, the king, is dead, and everything that was his is now hers. Once the pyre is completed, Daenerys gathers her people together, now fewer than 100, and declares that they will be her khalasar. Among the crowd, she sees slaves and declares them free. She announces that any among them are free to go, but if they stay, they shall always have an honored place among her khalasar. Daenerys turns to the 3 young warriors of her cause and gives each of them one of her bride's gifts, naming them Ko and asking for their oaths as her blood riders. To Drogo, she gives the silver-handled whip, to Aggo the double-curved black dragonbone bow, and to Rakawo the gold-chased arak. However, none of them are willing to take the oath. Drogo replies that it is not done and it would shame him to be a woman's blood rider. Aggo states that only a man can lead a khalasar and name a Ko, and Rakawa only promises to take her to Vaes Dothrak to join the Dash Khaleen. Daenerys ignores the refusal. Finally, Daenerys turns to Ser Jorah and promises him a fine Valyrian steel blade when she comes to her birthright. Ser Jorah swears his fealty and heart to her, and Daenerys proclaims him the first of her Queen's Guard. Daenerys returns to her tent, knowing the Dothraki think her mad and not sure that they are wrong. After a pleasingly steaming hot bath, she is dried and perfumed. Daenerys sends her handmaids away so that she might prepare Drogo for his final journey. She thinks about how few Dothraki men die with their hair uncut as she washes him, braids his hair with bells, and dresses him in fine clothes and the worn vest he likes most. She finally asks him to forgive her and declares that she paid the price, but it was too high. She then dresses in fine clothes with a vest like Drogo's. The sun is setting when she calls them back to bear Drogo to the pyre. Daenerys orders oil poured over the pyre and then orders her handmaidens to fetch her dragon eggs. Something in her voice makes them run. Ser Jorah protests that Drogo will have no need of dragon eggs, urging Daenerys to sell them and live as a wealthy woman for the rest of her days. Daenerys insists that the eggs were not given to her to sell. Daenerys climbs the pyre to place the black egg under Drogo's arm near his heart, the green beside his head, and the cream and gold between his legs. Once the eggs are in place, Daenerys gives her love one last kiss. Climbing down, Daenerys notices Mirri Maz Duur watching her and hears the Magi call her mad. Daenerys only asks how far madness is from wisdom and commands that Mirri Maz Duur be bound to the funeral pyre by Rakawo and Ser Jorah, who hesitates and protests. The woman does not scream or plead as she is bound. As she pours the oil over the Magi's head, Daenerys thanks her for all she has taught her. Mirri Maz Duur promises that Daenerys will not hear her scream. Daenerys insists that she will, but that she only wants the Magi's life, echoing the woman's words, "Only death can pay for life." This brings a flicker of what might be fear to the Magi's face for the first time. They wait for a night to fall. It is Drogo that first notices the red comet. The first star of the evening, Daenerys sees this as a sign to light the pyre. Mirri Maz Duur sings in a high, ululating voice at first, but her voice becomes a wail as the flames engulf her, and she soon falls silent. The Dothraki and Ser Jorah back away as the smoke grows thicker and the heat stronger, but Daenerys stands her ground. She is the blood of the dragon, and undeterred by the fire. She knew the truth long ago, but the brazier was not hot enough. Then Daenerys begins to slowly walk towards the fire as sweat covers her body. She sees many images as she walks, trees, animals, and a great gray stallion. Seeing the horse, she tells Drogo to mount, and for a second she sees him mounted. He smiles at her and cracks a whip made of flame down upon the pyre, and Daenerys hears the crack of breaking stone as the pyre collapses, showering her with ash, cinders, and broken eggshell. Behind her, she can hear the Dothraki and Ser Jorah shouting. As the pyre begins to collapse completely, Daenerys hears two more cracks like the first and walks into the heart of the fire. When the fire dies, Ser Jorah finds Daenerys naked but alive and unburnt except for her hair, nursing two baby dragons, with a third draped across her shoulders. The dragon matched the colors of their egg, cream and gold, green and bronze, and black and scarlet. Ser Jorah drops to his knees wordlessly. He is followed by Jogo, Ago, and Rakaro, who declare her blood of their blood, and then her handmaidens and the rest of the Dothraki do the same. Daenerys knows that they are now hers as they were never Drogo's. Daenerys rises, and for the first time in hundreds of years, the night comes alive with the music of dragons. Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my video. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this series reread of all the chapters for the Game of Thrones. I will be starting the reread for the second book, A Clash of Kings, starting next week. I hope you'll come back. And again, thank you so much for stopping by and for showing your love and support. I truly appreciate it. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again. Bye.